A quiet neighborhood, a young woman's scream, and a doorbell camera that captured everything, except the killer's face. What really happened to Sheylle Cabrera on that chilling October night? The perfect suburb, Maplewood Lane, wasn't the kind of place where people locked their doors. It was a calm suburban stretch just outside of Seattle, lined with trimmed hedges, friendly neighbors, and the hum of distant traffic. That peace shattered on October 14, 2022. At exactly 9:42 p.m., a piercing scream echoed down the street, followed by a loud bang. Within minutes, residents emerged from their homes, confused and frightened. One of them, Tom Ellison, noticed flashing blue lights illuminating the home of Sheylle Cabrera, a 27-year-old nurse known for her warm smile and quiet nature. Just hours earlier, Sheylle had been seen returning from her late shift at St. Helena's Hospital. She stopped by a convenience store, bought a coffee, and texted her best friend, Lee Sanders, saying she was finally home safe. That was the last message she would ever send. When police arrived, they found Sheylle collapsed on her doorstep, lifeless. There were no signs of forced entry, no weapon nearby, and no footprints leading away. But something strange caught their attention. The doorbell camera had been triggered at 9:38 p.m., just minutes before her death. The footage showed Sheylle walking up her driveway, keys in hand. Then, a shadow appeared behind her. She turned sharply, startled. The camera flickered once, then the image froze. The next frame showed her lying on the porch. Detectives Marcus Hale and Renee Ortiz were assigned to the case. Hale, a methodical investigator with 20 years on the force, immediately ordered the tech team to recover the corrupted footage. Ortiz, younger and sharper with digital forensics, believed the key to solving the murder was hidden in those missing seconds. By the next morning, the entire neighborhood was in panic. News vans lined the street, broadcasting headlines like "Doorbell Horror in Maplewood" and "Killer Caught on Camera." But the truth was, the killer wasn't caught, not yet. As detectives began their canvass, several neighbors mentioned seeing a white sedan parked near Sheylle's home around the same time. One man claimed it had been there for days. Another neighbor said he saw a tall figure wearing a black hoodie get out of the car earlier that evening. Inside Sheylle's home, the crime scene team found her phone on the kitchen counter. Her last outgoing call was to an unknown number, one that was disconnected minutes after the incident. Then came the twist. During evidence review, Ortiz noticed something in the footage that others missed. A faint reflection in the glass door, part of a tattoo visible for only a split second. A small serpent wrapped around a dagger. That symbol matched a known tattoo linked to a local ex-con named Drew Mallory, who once dated Sheylle 2 years ago. He had a record of stalking and assault, and recently been released from prison. Detective Hale issued an immediate warrant, but when police arrived at Drew's apartment, it was empty. His car was gone. Only one thing remained: a torn photograph of him and Sheylle, burned at the edges. The doorbell footage had caught his reflection, but it also caught something else. In the background of the same reflection, another face appeared. Someone else was there. That meant one terrifying thing: Sheylle's killer wasn't alone. The missing seconds, the morning after the murder, the usually quiet Maplewood Lane looked like a crime scene straight out of a TV show. Yellow police tape, news vans, flashing lights, and curious neighbors whispering from behind curtains. But for detectives Marcus Hale and Renee Ortiz, this wasn't a show. It was real, and every second mattered. The biggest clue, and the biggest mystery, was that doorbell camera. The footage had been corrupted right at the critical moment. Someone or something had tampered with it. The footage that lied Detective Ortiz spent the morning at the digital forensics lab downtown, replaying the clip over and over. "Look here," she said, pointing at the monitor. "This frame, there's a flicker, not just a camera glitch. Someone tried to remotely overwrite the file." "Overwrite," Hale repeated, frowning. "You mean delete it, not delete, replace. It's a cover-up. The system logs show a connection at 9:40 p.m. Exactly 2 minutes before Sheylle was attacked. Someone accessed the feed from her own account." Hale leaned closer. "So the killer had her login." Ortiz nodded slowly. "Or someone she trusted enough to give it to." The detectives looked at each other. A new layer of the mystery had just been peeled open. The ex, the first obvious suspect, was still Drew Mallory, Sheylle's ex-boyfriend. He'd been released from prison 6 months earlier and had a documented history of violence. He'd violated a restraining order once before, sending her threatening messages like, "If I can't have you, no one will." But there was no sign of him now. Police tracked his phone's last known location to a gas station 2 miles from Maplewood Lane. The same night as the murder, surveillance footage confirmed he was there around 9:15 p.m., just minutes before Sheylle's death. He was seen buying gloves and duct tape. Classic creep behavior. Hale muttered as they watched the footage. But Ortiz wasn't satisfied. He could have ditched the car, walked over. But something doesn't fit. "What?" Hale asked. "Look at the time he left the gas station. 9:20. Even if he drove straight to her house, he'd need at least 10 minutes. That means he got there at 9:30, before the footage starts at 9:38. So he was waiting," Hale said grimly, "watching her." Ortiz sighed. "Or someone else was." Lee's secret later that afternoon. Sheylle's best friend Lee Sanders arrived at the station for questioning. She looked distraught, eyes red, hands trembling. "Sheylle and I were supposed to meet that night," she said softly. "We were going to have dinner after her shift, but she cancelled at the last minute." "Did she say why?" Hale asked. Lee hesitated. "She said she had something important to deal with. Something about a person from her past." Ortiz glanced up. "Did she mention Drew Mallory?" Leah shook her head. "No, but she seemed scared. I could hear it in her voice." Hale leaned forward. "Did Sheylle ever talk about anyone else bothering her? Maybe someone new?" Lee bit her lip, eyes darting to the side. "There was someone from work, a doctor. Dr. Alan Mercer. She said he was nice at first, but started getting too close." Hale raised an eyebrow. "Too close how?" Lee hesitated again. "He'd show up at her house uninvited. Once, she caught him sitting in his car across the street. She told me she was thinking about reporting him." Ortiz's pen froze mid-note. "And when was this?" "Last week." The doctor by evening, detectives visited Dr. Alan Mercer, a 40-year-old emergency physician at St. Helena's. He opened the door looking calm, too calm. "I heard about Sheylle," he said immediately. "Terrible tragedy. She was one of the kindest nurses we had." Hale nodded, studying his face. "You knew her well?" "Professionally, yes." Ortiz flipped open her notebook. "We've heard you might have spent time together outside work." Mercer's expression tightened. "We went out for coffee once. That's all." Or Hale crossed his arms. "Neighbors said your car, a white sedan, was seen near her house the night she died." Mercer blinked. "White sedan. Detective, there are hundreds of those in the city." Ortiz's tone sharpened. "We checked hospital records. You clocked out at ASIN 45. That puts you 10 minutes from Maplewood Lane." A flicker of irritation crossed Mercer's face. "Are you accusing me of something?" Hale didn't answer. He simply said, "We'll need your phone and your car for examination." As they turned to leave, Mercer called out. "You're wasting your time. You should be looking for her ex. He's the dangerous one." The detectives exchanged a glance and noticed something. On Mercer's wrist, just under his watch band, was a faint mark, like a fresh scratch. The recovered clip. Back at the precinct that night, Ortiz got a call from the digital lab. "We're recovered 3 seconds of lost footage." Her heart skipped. "Send it over." The footage was glitchy, but clear enough to see movement. It showed Sheylle turning toward the camera, her face pale, eyes wide. Behind her, a man's shadow approached, but the man wasn't alone. Another silhouette stood by the gate, still, watching. Then, in the reflection of the glass door, the faint image of a white car appeared under the streetlight. Ortiz froze the frame and zoomed in. The car's license plate was blurred, but one corner of it was visible, 7K2. It wasn't Drew Mallory's car. His plate started with 9C4. It matched Dr. Mercer's. The vanishing ex. The next morning, Hale and Ortiz received another lead. Drew Mallory's car had been found abandoned in a parking lot near the harbor. Inside, police discovered a single item on the passenger seat, a burner phone. It had one number saved in its call history, a contact named AM. Ortiz's jaw clenched. "Alan Mercer," Hale exhaled slowly. So they knew each other. A further digging revealed that Mercer had once been Drew's sponsor in a rehab program. They'd met years before Sheylle even started working at the hospital. This wasn't random, it was orchestrated. The betrayal, when confronted again, Dr. Mercer's calm mask finally cracked. "You don't understand," he said, his voice trembling. "Drew came to me. He said Sheylle ruined his life. He wanted to confront her, not hurt her." Ortiz folded her arms. "Then why were you at her house?" "I went to stop him," Mercer said quickly. "But when I got there, it was too late. I saw him running off. I panicked. I didn't call the police because of my reputation." Hale's eyes narrowed. "So you just stood there, watched her die?" Mercer said nothing. Ortiz slammed a photo on the table, the reflection from the doorbell camera showing both men. "You weren't just there, Doctor. You were part of it." The twist, as the interview ended, Hale received a call from the forensic techs. "We're just finished analyzing the scratch on Mercer's wrist. It's from a metal ring, one with sharp edges." Hale looked at Ortiz. "Sheylle wore one like that, didn't she?" Ortiz nodded. "An engraved promise ring from her best friend Lee." The realization hit both detectives at once. What if Leah wasn't just the grieving friend? What if she was the connection between Sheylle, Drew, and Mercer? When they rechecked Sheylle's phone records, they found multiple late night calls to Leah, but also payments made from Sheylle's account to a private transfer service, each sent to a user ID linked to Lee Sanders. The secret friendship. When confronted, Lee broke down in tears. "She was helping me," she sobbed. "I was in debt. I borrowed money from her, but Drew found out. He said he'd expose me unless I helped him talk to her one last time." Ortiz's eyes narrowed. "So you gave him Sheylle's doorbell password?" Lee nodded weakly. "He said it was just to prove he was nearby. I didn't know he'd." Her voice cracked. Hale leaned forward, voice low. "But he didn't come alone, did he?" Mercer was there too. Leah's eyes filled with guilt. "He promised he'd protect her. I thought he would." The ending frame. With Leah's testimony, police now had enough to connect all three: Drew Mallory, the obsessed ex, Dr. Alan Mercer, the jealous admirer who couldn't let go, Lee Sanders, the unintentional accomplice who gave them access. But there was still one question left. Who delivered the final blow? That answer came days later, when divers recovered a body from the harbor. Drew Mallory. His death was ruled a suicide. In his pocket was a crumpled note. She trusted you more than me. You did it. Not me. The handwriting matched his, but the words pointed to Mercer. When confronted with the note, Dr. Mercer didn't deny it. He simply said, "She said she loved someone else. I couldn't let that happen." His confession ended the case, but not the unease. The final twist months later, as the city began to forget, Detective Ortiz received a new email, an anonymous file attachment labeled Doorbell Backup, MP4. When she played it, the same scene appeared: Sheylle walking up to her door. The attack, the shadow, but now the final second was restored. Just as Sheylle fell, the attacker's face turned toward the camera, and it wasn't Drew or Mercer. It was Lee Sanders. Ortiz sat frozen, the screen flickering in the dark room. The file's timestamp was altered. Someone had uploaded it days after the murder. In the reflection, Lee's face twisted in shock, realizing she had been caught by the same camera she thought she'd helped disable. And with that, the case of Sheylle Cabrera went from a doorbell mystery to one of the most chilling betrayals Maplewood had ever seen. The hidden truth. The sun rose over Maplewood with a dull orange haze, washing the quiet neighborhood in soft light. But inside the Maple County Police Department, the mood was anything but calm. The case that had seemed closed, the murder of Sheylle Cabrera, was cracking wide open again. Detective Renee Ortiz sat at her desk, replaying the new doorbell footage for what felt like the 100th time. The restored final second still haunted her. The attacker's face, clear as daylight, wasn't Drew Mallory's or Dr. Alan Mercer's. It was Lee Sanders, Sheylle's best friend. The same woman who'd cried through her statement, begged for forgiveness, and claimed she had nothing to do with the murder. Ortiz leaned back, exhaling sharply. "She played all of us," she muttered. Across the office, Detective Marcus Hale looked up from his files. "You're sure it's her?" Ortiz turned the monitor toward him, frame by frame. "The facial match is 98% identical. It's Lee." Hale rubbed his temples. "We cleared her too soon, because she made us think she was just a pawn," Ortiz replied. "Turns out she was the one holding the strings." A friend's mask. 3 hours later, Leah Sanders was back in the interrogation room. No tears this time, no trembling voice, just cold silence. Ortiz set a photo on the table, a still image from the recovered footage. "You want to explain why this looks exactly like you?" Leah's lips pressed into a thin line. "That's not me." Hale leaned forward. "We verified it through the FBI's image recognition database. It's you, Leah. Same jawline, same hairline, same earring you wore that night." Lee didn't answer. She just stared at the table. Ortiz's tone hardened. "You said you didn't know what happened to Sheylle. But you were there. You were the one who rang the doorbell." Leah finally looked up, and her eyes were full of something Ortiz didn't expect. Not guilt, not hatred. "She deserved it," Lee whispered. The motive no one saw coming. The room fell silent. Hale blinked, stunned. "Deserved it? For what?" Lee's expression twisted. "For taking everything from me, my job, my boyfriend, my life." Ortiz frowned. "Your boyfriend? You mean Dr. Mercer?" Leah nodded slowly. "Yes, we were together. He told me he loved me. Then she came along, and suddenly he was obsessed with her." She gave a hollow laugh. "He said she was pure and kind. Said she reminded him of what he used to be. He stopped answering my calls, started avoiding me at work, and when I confronted her, she told me to grow up, that I was being childish." Lee clenched her fists. "So I made her pay." Hale's voice was low, almost pitying. "You planned this?" "No," Lee hissed. "I wanted to scare her, Just make her realize she wasn't untouchable. Drew wanted to talk to her, and Mercer said he'd help. But then everything went wrong. The night of the murder, as Lee spoke. The story that unfolded was darker than anyone imagined. On the night of the murder, Lee met Drew Mallory behind an old motel on the edge of town. She'd promised to help him get closure with Sheylle. In return, he'd pay her enough to cover her mounting debts. She gave Drew the login details to Sheylle's Doorbell app, thinking he'd just send a message or show up to talk. But then Dr. Mercer called. He told Lee Drew was unstable, that he might hurt Sheylle. He begged her to meet him near Sheylle's house to make sure nothing happened. By the time Lee arrived, Drew and Mercer were already arguing on the sidewalk. Sheylle was pulling into the driveway. Everything happened so fast, Lee said, her voice shaking now. Drew grabbed her arm, she screamed. Mercer tried to pull him away. I panicked. I thought she'd call the police. I didn't mean to. Ortiz cut her off. You didn't mean to what? Lee swallowed hard. Push her. I just pushed her. The silence that followed was heavy. She fell, Lee whispered. Her head hit the step, and then there was blood. So much blood. The cover up, according to Leah. Mercer freaked out. He told her they couldn't call the police, that it would ruin all of their lives. He said Drew would take the blame willingly, but they had to clean things up. Mercer wiped the scene and disabled the camera feed. Lee waited in the car, shaking uncontrollably. Then I saw something in the reflection, Lee murmured. Her eyes. She was still alive. For a second, I thought she was going to stand up. But then she didn't move again. Sheylle exchanged a look with Ortiz. You realize that was murder, Lee. Whether you meant to or not. Lee looked away, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. He told me it would look like Drew did it. He said Drew owed him. He said he'd make it go away. The doctor's game, back at the precinct. Ortiz dug deeper into Dr. Mercer's background. The deeper she went, the stranger it got. He'd been accused of unethical behavior before, manipulating patients, inappropriate relationships with nurses. But every case had quietly disappeared. There were rumors he'd used hospital systems to monitor staff, even installing unauthorized cameras. Ortiz found something even more disturbing, a series of private messages between Mercer and Leah, sent weeks before the murder. Mercer? She doesn't deserve you. Leah? Then why can't you let her go? Mercer? Because she makes me feel alive. You'll understand soon. Ortiz slammed her laptop shut. He played her like a puppet. Sheylle nodded grimly. He wanted Sheylle for himself. When he couldn't have her, he used Lee's jealousy and Drew's anger to destroy her. The perfect manipulation. 3 people, all believing different lies. At the trial that shook the town, when the truth finally broke, the media went wild. Love triangle turns deadly. Doorbell murder. The betrayal behind the camera. Nurse's best friend confesses to fatal push. The courtroom was packed for weeks. Leah's tearful confession was broadcast live. Dr. Mercer, cool and detached, denied everything, claiming he was simply trying to mediate. But digital evidence, recovered footage, and text messages told a different story. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. Verdict: Lee Sanders, guilty of second-degree murder. Dr. Alan Mercer, guilty of conspiracy and obstruction of justice. Drew Mallory's death was ruled suicide, though many believed Mercer pushed him over the edge. The final discovery, a month after the trial, Ortiz couldn't shake the feeling something was missing. Why had that final second of footage surfaced after Mercer's arrest? Who sent it? The metadata from the file revealed it came from an encrypted server. one located in Mercer's hospital office. That meant he had a backup of the footage the whole time. Maybe he wanted to frame Leah in the end, Hale said. Punish her for turning against him. Ortiz stared at the flickering video one last time. Or maybe he wanted us to know how far he could go, even from behind bars. A reflection that never fades. Months passed. Maplewood slowly returned to normal. The Cabrera house was sold, renovated, and repainted. But no one ever installed a new doorbell camera. Neighbors said that at night, when the wind blew, they could still hear faint sounds from the porch. A woman's footsteps, a brief cry, then silence. Detective Ortiz kept a copy of the recovered footage in her drawer, though she rarely watched it. Every time she did, she swore she saw something new, a flicker, a reflection, a whisper of someone else, still unseen. She'd never tell anyone this. But sometimes, in that reflection, she thought she saw herself. The investigation had ended, but the shadows of Maplewood Lane never truly left her. Reflection of the truth. The weight of what's left. 6 months had passed since the trial. Maplewood Lane was quiet again. Too quiet. The Cabrera house stood empty, its windows covered with dust. A for sale sign leaned crookedly in the yard, swaying in the wind. Most people had moved on. The media stopped calling. The headlines faded. But Detective Renee Ortiz hadn't moved on. Every few nights, she found herself sitting alone in her apartment, the glow of her laptop screen reflecting in her eyes, replaying that cursed doorbell footage. Frame by frame, second by second. She'd memorized every flicker. Sheylle's smile, the shadow's approach, Lee's sudden appearance, the fall. Yet something inside her whispered that the story wasn't over. The glitch one night, while re-watching the footage again, Ortiz noticed something she hadn't seen before. A tiny flicker of movement in the top, left corner of the video. Right before Lee appeared, she paused it, enhanced the frame. There it was. A faint reflection in the window of the house across the street. Someone standing there, holding what looked like a camera. Her pulse quickened. She zoomed in further, but the image pixelated beyond recognition. All she could see was the silhouette of a tall man wearing a dark jacket, watching everything unfold from across the street. Someone else had been there that night. The forgotten neighbor. The next morning, Ortiz drove back to Maplewood Lane. It felt strange to be there again. The same air, the same smell of cut grass, the same silence. She crossed the street to the house that had been reflected in the footage. The owner was Tom Ellison, the friendly neighbor who had first called 911 that night. He'd been interviewed before and cleared, but something about him had always felt off. Too helpful, too eager to talk. When Ortiz knocked, he opened the door, surprised. "Detective, I thought this case was over." Ortiz gave a polite smile. "Just a few follow-up questions, Mr. Ellison." He invited her in. The house was neat, almost unnervingly so. Every picture frame perfectly aligned. Not a speck of dust anywhere. "I've already told you everything I saw," he said, nervous laughter in his tone. Ortiz nodded slowly. "You said you heard a scream and saw flashing lights, right?" He nodded. She looked around. "Mind if I ask what kind of security system you have?" He hesitated. "Security system?" "Yes," Ortiz said. "Your house was directly across from Sheylle's. Her doorbell camera caught your reflection, including your window. I noticed what looked like another camera there." Ellison stiffened. That's impossible. I don't have one." Ortiz's eyes landed on the corner shelf, where a small, black object sat half hidden behind a vase. A dash cam. She walked toward it slowly. "Is that what I think it is?" Tom swallowed hard. "That's just an old camera. Doesn't even work. Mind if I check?" Ortiz asked. He didn't answer, but the tension in the air was enough. She picked it up, turned it over, and pressed the power button. It blinked to life. And the last video file was dated October 14th, 2022. The night Sheylle died. The hidden angle at headquarters, Ortiz connected the camera to her computer. The footage began to play. A view from Tom's front window. It showed Sheylle's house across the street. The image was grainy but clear enough to see movement. At 9:36 p.m., a car pulled up, Dr. Mercer's white sedan. At 9:38, Sheylle walked up her driveway. At 9:39, Lee appeared from the side path. But there was one more figure. The same dark silhouette from before, standing behind Mercer's car, watching. And this time, the camera caught his face as the porch light flickered. Tom Ellison. Ortiz froze. "You've got to be kidding me." He hadn't just been a witness. He had been there. In the reflection from the footage, Tom's face appeared again, staring at the camera, emotionless. As chaos unfolded just meters away, he didn't move to help, didn't call for minutes. He was watching. Recording. The obsession Hale's voice was grave when Ortiz showed him the footage. "He's either the most disturbed bystander I've ever seen or part of it." They pulled Tom Ellison's records. He had no criminal history, no violent offenses. But a background check revealed something chilling. A collection of online accounts under aliases like MapleWatcher and True Crime Fan 89. Each account posted about unsolved murders, especially those involving women in suburban areas. And one account had uploaded several clips, including short, edited versions of Sheylle's doorbell footage. He was leaking the footage online, Ortiz muttered, disgusted. "Before we even solve the case." Hale leaned back, shaking his head. He turned a murder into entertainment. The confrontation, Ortiz and Hale returned to Tom's home that night with a warrant. Inside his basement, they found what looked like a shrine. Photos of Sheylle printed and pinned to the wall, notes about the case, timelines, even articles about Drew and Leah. At the center of it all was a corkboard with the headline, "The Doorbell Murder. The Truth They Missed." On the board were stills from the doorbell footage, with one marked, "Uploaded by me." Ortiz stared at him in disbelief. "You filmed her death, and you posted it." Tom's face was eerily calm. "People needed to see. You police, you hide things. I showed them what really happened." Hale stepped forward. "You didn't show anything. You exploited a woman's murder." Tom tilted his head. "Maybe. But what if I wasn't the only one?" Ortiz frowned. "What do you mean?" He smiled faintly. "Check the views, detective. You'll see who watched it first." The digital ghost back at the precinct, Ortiz traced the IP logs from the leaked video. The first account to view the upload wasn't a random person. It was linked to a hospital server. The same one used by Dr. Mercer before his arrest. Her stomach turned. "He's still watching." Hale frowned. "He's in prison. No access to the outside world." But Mercer had always been a step ahead. A manipulator, a control freak. If he'd saved footage to a remote drive before his arrest, it could still upload from his encrypted servers. And maybe he'd shared access. Ortiz checked again. There was a second login from a new device located near the prison. Someone was visiting Mercer regularly and using his credentials. That person? Leigh Sanders' sister, Maya Sanders, a 22-year-old student who'd never appeared in the investigation before. The last visit Ortiz arranged a visit to the prison. Mercer was thinner now, pale but still carrying that same smug calmness. "You still chasing ghosts, detective?" he asked with a small smile. Ortiz slid a photo across the table, the one of Maya visiting him last week. "Who's this?" Mercer's smile faltered for the first time. She's just a friend. Ortiz leaned forward. She's Leah's sister. And she's using your account to upload footage from the murder. You two working together now? Mercer chuckled. Detective, maybe you should be thanking me. If not for those videos, no one would remember Sheylle. Ortiz's voice dropped low. Or maybe you just wanted to make sure everyone remembered you. He didn't respond, but his smirk told her everything she needed to know. The final frame, 2 days later, Ortiz received a notification on the department's media tracker. A new upload had gone viral overnight, titled, "The Doorbell Murder Full Uncut Version." She opened it. It was the same footage, but extended. The final seconds now showed something horrifying. After Sheylle collapsed, the camera's lens flickered again, revealing someone stepping onto the porch. Not Leah, not Drew, Tom Ellison. He knelt beside Sheylle's body, looked directly into the camera, and whispered something. Ortiz boosted the audio. His words came through faintly. Now it's perfect. The collapse. Tom was arrested that night. The truth unraveled quickly after that. He had been recording everything for months. Not just as a voyeur, but as part of his twisted fascination with real-life true crime. He'd befriended Drew online through a true crime forum, encouraged his obsession with Sheylle, and later contacted Mercer, feeding him information about her private life. He wasn't just watching, he was orchestrating. Every move, every manipulation, every leak was part of his plan to turn Sheylle's murder into a perfect case. And the doorbell footage. He'd hacked into her account days before the murder to ensure it captured exactly what he wanted. It wasn't luck. It was production. The reflection lives on. When Tom was finally booked, Ortiz sat outside the precinct, watching the sunset fade into darkness. What kind of world turns murder into entertainment? She whispered. Hale sighed beside her. The kind we live in, I guess. She looked down at her phone. The video had already hit 3 million views, re-uploaded by copycat accounts, shared across the internet. No matter how many times they took it down, it came back again, in one frame. Sheylle's reflection seemed to stare straight at her. Pleading, silent, eternal. Ortiz shut the phone off and whispered to herself, I'll make sure this ends. But deep down, she knew the truth. The case was solved. The killers were caught. And yet, the doorbell camera still uploaded new clips, random static, strange sounds, faint images of movement, as if the system itself refused to forget. The internet never deletes, and the dead never stop being watched. The final frame. What really happened to Sheylle Cabrera? The case that wouldn't die, Detective Renee Ortiz thought the nightmare was over. Tom Ellison had been arrested. The footage had been analysed and archived, and Maplewood Lane was finally silent again. But deep inside, Ortiz couldn't rest. Something about the case still didn't fit. The timeline, the motive, and most of all, the doorbell footage itself. The videos that kept reappearing online weren't just re-uploads. They were different. Each version was slightly altered, new angles, clearer audio, faint whispers in the background, as if someone, or something, was still editing them. And every time she tried to take one down, another popped up from a different account, all using the same username, Final Frame. The drive 2 weeks after Ellison's arrest, Ortiz received an unmarked envelope in the mail. Inside was a single USB drive and a note, "You missed one file. F." Her hands trembled as she plugged it into her computer. A folder appeared titled CRR-KEST-RAW. Inside were dozens of video clips, doorbell feeds, interior camera shots, even dashcam footage she'd never seen before. But one file stood out, Final Frame, MP4. It was time-stamped October 14th, 2022, 9:42 p.m., 3 minutes after Sheylle's recorded death, Ortiz clicked play. The missing minutes. The footage began like all the others. Sheylle falling to the ground, the camera tilting slightly as her body slumped, then static, then movement. Someone picked up the camera. Ortiz's heart pounded. The view shifted, showing a pair of black gloves gripping the device. The person walked toward Sheylle's body, crouched down, and whispered softly, "I told you they'd watch." The voice was unmistakable, Tom Ellison, but the next moment froze Ortiz completely. Another voice replied, "Good, now delete it." The second voice was female, calm, cold. "Leah Sanders." Ortiz leaned forward, shocked. Leah was supposed to have attacked Sheylle in the heat of the moment, impulsively, emotionally, but this exchange sounded planned. The camera turned again, capturing Leah standing a few feet away, her face emotionless under the porch light. Ellison asked quietly, "You sure you want this to end here?" Leah's response chilled Ortiz to the core. It ended the moment she started filming us. The perfect trap. Ortiz replayed the footage over and over. The puzzle pieces began to connect in horrifying clarity. Sheylle had discovered Drew's affair and threatened to expose both him and Leah. But Lee wasn't acting alone. Tom Ellison, the obsessive neighbor, had inserted himself into the story months earlier, secretly befriending Lee online after finding out about the affair through community gossip. He'd convinced her that the only way to control the narrative was to stage the confrontation, record it, make it look like an accident, and then leak the footage to make Drew appear guilty. Lee had agreed, but when Tom realized how real the murder was, he twisted it into something darker. An online spectacle. The entire Doorbell murder wasn't spontaneous. It was scripted, produced, and Sheylle had unknowingly walked into a trap for content. The return to Maplewood. That night, Ortiz returned to the Cabrera house. It had been sold to a young couple, but they hadn't moved in yet. The porch still had the same faded stains, faint reminders of that night. She stood in front of the doorbell camera, staring into its glass lens. Her reflection stared back. She whispered, "What else did you see?" Almost as if in response. The camera's light flickered, then it powered on by itself. Ortiz froze. Her laptop, connected via hotspot, began receiving a new file transfer. The source doorbell unit to 002. The system wasn't supposed to be active, but something, or someone, had reconnected it. When the transfer finished, a new video appeared on her screen. last.fee, MP4, the final frame. The video opened in complete darkness. Then, faintly, Sheylle's voice whispered, "I know you're watching me." Ortiz's breath caught. The timestamp showed it was recorded 5 hours before her death. A clip never seen before. The image came into focus. Sheylle sitting on her couch, talking to the camera. Her expression was tense. "Someone's been following me. They're obsessed with the camera. Keep saying everything has to be perfect. If anything happens to me, check the files. It's all there." A sudden knock at the door interrupted her. She glanced toward it, frightened. "That's him again," she whispered. "I told him to stop." The video cut off abruptly. Ortiz sat frozen. She'd been right. Sheylle knew something was coming. But the most shocking detail was in the video's metadata. It wasn't saved by the doorbell. It was manually uploaded 3 days ago. By user, final frame. The ghost account. Ortiz traced the username again, expecting it to lead to a dead end. But instead, it led to a login session from Tom Ellison's email. The strange part, Tom was in solitary confinement. No phone, no internet access. Yet the upload came from inside the prison network. How is that even possible? Hale muttered when she showed him the logs. Ortiz's voice was barely a whisper. "He's not working alone." The next day, she visited the prison. Tom greeted her with a faint smile. "Detective Ortiz," he said. "Back for another episode." Ortiz tossed the USB drive onto the table. "Who's posting these?" "You're in here." Tom laughed quietly. "You really think I need to touch a computer to be seen?" She glared. "You're not smart enough to haunt the internet, Ellison." He leaned forward. "Maybe not. But she is." Ortiz frowned. "Who?" He whispered. "Sheylle." The haunting truth. Later that night, Ortiz reviewed the footage again, slowing down every frame of the final upload. At Hodon 15, a reflection appeared in the window behind Sheylle. Not Tom, not Leah, but another figure entirely. A woman with a camera. Her face was pale, blurred by light. Her eyes identical to Sheylle's. Ortiz's pulse spiked. Could it be a trick of the light? Or was this part of Ellison's last manipulation? His final illusion to keep the legend alive? When she enhanced the image, something else appeared at the bottom corner of the frame, a date. October 14th, 2025. Exactly 3 years to the day since Sheylle's murder. And the timestamp matched the exact minute Ortiz received the file. The upload never stops. By morning, Ortiz's department inbox was flooded with messages. Thousands of people had started receiving strange video recommendations titled, "The Doorbell Murder, She's Still Watching." Each clip contained grainy night footage of random suburban homes, all showing a faint figure standing by the door, watching. IP traces led nowhere, the username on all accounts final frame. When the police tried to block them, new versions appeared instantly. The legend of the Doorbell murder had evolved, from true crime to something supernatural. Ortiz closed her laptop, exhausted. She whispered to herself, "The story's not ours anymore. It's hers." Epilogue. The doorbell rings that night. Ortiz returned home after filing her final report. She poured a glass of wine, sat on the couch, and turned on the news. The anchor was reporting the viral phenomenon of the doorbell ghost. Ortiz sighed, rubbing her temples. Then, a sound echoed through her apartment. Ding dong, her doorbell. She froze. Slowly, she walked toward it and looked through the peephole. Nothing. But when she checked her phone, her own smart doorbell app had recorded something. A woman standing at her doorstep for exactly 3 seconds before vanishing. The video's title, Final Frame, MP4. Ortiz dropped the phone, her breath trembling, and in the reflection of the dark screen, she saw her own terrified face, next to a faint figure behind her, smiling.